Welcome to Both Sides of the Coin, the podcast from CDN Publishing, bringing you relevant stories and behind-the-scenes access to the rare coin market. Today, we have an exciting guest who joins us for an exclusive interview. Jim Halperin, co-founder and co-chairman of Heritage Auctions. Heritage, of course, needs no introduction to even casual numismatists. However, Jim seldom has the time to sit down and chat like he did with us today. Jim, it's great to be with you today. I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, John. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. This is great. I think it's very exciting. And I'm sure our listeners will be, really interested to hear what you have to say. So I'm going to try and ask you some questions today that you don't get asked every day. And we'd like to just learn a little bit more about you and, where you come from in terms of collecting strategies and how you're growing your business.
Sure.
So for starters, Heritage has experienced tremendous growth since its founding in 1976. The company is now one of the biggest players in the live auction universe worldwide in fine art, antiques, collectibles, and, of course, the largest auctioneer of rare coins in the world. So what do you think has inspired your company's growth and dominance in this field and growing into these other areas?
Well, I think the internet was a game changer for us in coins. We kind of went from maybe a second or third tier player in the 80s to number one after we launched our website. And I think that was just more a matter of timing and maybe seeing around a few corners and thinking a lot about what the internet was going to look like before other people really had their arms around it, and giving away a lot of information for free before other people decided they had to follow suit. So we built up a really great clientele that way early on, and it kind of snowballed from there. And in the early 2000s, we had a lot of discussions here about whether we could take that platform and migrate to other categories. And fortunately, we decided to go for it, and the rest is history.
Right. No, it's been fascinating watching you guys grow from rare coins. I sometimes will have to explain that to other people in conversation. I'll say, no, Heritage actually started in rare coins. They didn't start in fine art or sports collectibles and things like that. So not everybody realizes that at this point, and it's fascinating. And of course, I was around, a friend of yours and a client of Heritage, in those early days when you were even prior to the internet, and watching you guys. I think watching you embrace the internet inspired me to embrace the internet at David Lawrence Rare Coins, and I was doing, following your coattails at some times, and we're both simpatico as far as all that's concerned, and clearly.
Oh yeah, you and I have been friends, I think, probably almost since you got into the coin business, and Steve Ivey and I have admired your business acumen for decades.
Well, thank you, and likewise.
And as I recall, we tried to recruit you back when you would have been affordable.
We'll have to save that for a different interview. But thank you. Thank you. All right. So you've kind of stolen my second question with some of your answer there. But where do you think you go from here as far as everything is concerned? Clearly we've seen where you've evolved from rare coins into other collectibles, and you're dominating in all those other categories thanks to the foundation you built in rare coins. But where do you think the internet takes auction bidding from here? Where does Heritage see the future?
Well, I don't really know. I think it's going to change fast, and I think we're going to have to be nimble and adapt. But I don't know the direction that it's going to from here. I just know that we have to stay cutting edge, and we have to pay attention and watch what technology brings in terms of additional capabilities that people might want.
Right. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's a question that I have that I don't see a good answer to either. And I wonder maybe social media interaction with auction comes into play. I think in the historic sense, live auctions used to be about a room full of people with paddles in the air, and there was a social experiment going on, wasn't there? I mean, with guys raising paddles and other people looking at them and putting their paddle higher, just almost in the ego sense.
Absolutely. And I don't know I shouldn't say that. I don't know when there will be a time to replicate that feeling.
Right.
For the last couple of decades, we've said that an empty auction room is a badge of honor. That's sort of been a mantra at Heritage, because it means that if people don't have to show up in person, you've saved them time.
Sure.
And it also means that they trust you and they trust your platform. So we consider an empty auction room to be a big sign of success in the auction business at the moment. Will that change with virtual reality or avatars or whatever shows up on the future horizon of what we now call the internet? I don't know.
Yeah.
And when will that happen? I don't know that either.
That would be kind of cool,
but
you know.
Yeah, it might be, and it might change the psychology a little bit. But we're really much more focused on giving people the information they need to make intelligent decisions. We don't want anybody to buy anything by mistake or to overpay by mistake. We don't mind if they overpay because they really want something and that's the only way to get it. But we never want anybody to overpay because they made a mistake or because we didn't give them the right information.
Right. And that's obvious too. And I share your sentiments in terms of Heritage gives out all of this pricing information. You give out pricing information from CDN, but you also give it for 4 other published, pricing companies, which maybe gives me a little heartburn, but at the same time I get it. And in fact, I share that sentiment. I'll tell other people that CDN is 1 price guide, but we want you to use 5 price guides. We want you to make informed decisions, and Heritage doing that is something that should be replicated in all collectibles, probably at all auction houses. And that transparency, I think, really does lead to your success. And I applaud you for doing it. And it's funny that a lot of people just, even today, don't share that. In fact, I would say most auction companies don't share that.
Well, I think they're getting better, and some are.
Yeah.
I think they're all improving. We've helped raise the bar, I hope. Certainly the average auction company is far, far better than the average auction company was 20 years ago.
Sure.
In terms of transparency. And I think it's a trend that's, well, hopefully will never reverse, because it's better for everybody and it will grow the market for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
And people should be diversifying their assets into non-traditional investments, or maybe investments isn't quite the right word for what we sell, but it's certainly a good diversification of assets to have a collection of things that you enjoy and love, and that other people may be more interested in tomorrow than they are today.
Right. Like you say, it's a diversification of your portfolio, whether that's a technically an investment or just gives you more enjoyment in life than collecting money. It's not a bad thing. That's the way I feel about it.
Me too.
So moving to specifically numismatic questions, sort of personal questions. Heritage has handled some of the most important numismatic rarities of all time, including the 1804 Draped Bust dollar, which is actually coming. You have one coming up for sale this week in Long Beach. It's a very exciting coin. We've been watching it on the internet. I think last I checked, it was a 1.9 million current bid on the internet. I'm not 100% sure.
That's what it was this morning.
Right. So that's great. And then 1894 S dimes, Brasher doubloon, 1913 V nickel. On a personal level, what are your favorites? What coins do you love, or do you love coins at all, or do you have preferences outside of numismatics?
Well, honestly, when I started out as a coin dealer, I was 16 years old. I had almost no money. I didn't really, coins were a sideline when I started. My first company was Jim's Stamp and Coin Shop. It was a summer project when I was in high school. And I added coins to the sign as an afterthought, didn't even know anything about coins. And just discovered after maybe a year or so that I liked coins more than stamps, and started focusing more and more on coins all the way through my start at college before I dropped out. And I would say, and I used to tell myself that I didn't have a coin collection because I didn't want to compete with my customers. And that was true. But the main reason was I just didn't have enough money to collect coins, or anything else for that matter. until, much later. And so I've never collected coins.
Well, I'll tell you, I had no idea you owned a stamp shop. That's the first time you've ever told me that. I had no idea
Yeah.
that you knew anything about stamps.
And I was a comic book dealer before that. I was a comic book dealer when I was 11.
Well, that I believe, because you still have that passion, correct?
I do.
Yeah.
And I collect comics now.
Okay, but not coins. So there's no coins currently.
But not coins.
Okay.
I haven't collected coins since I was 9 years old.
Okay. Interesting. We'll have to talk about your stamps sometime. And Jim did drop a small fact in there that's worth highlighting. Is I think that Jim was a first semester dropout at Harvard, like other famous luminaries in the business world.
Actually, I lasted 3 semesters.
3 semesters. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
I dropped out in the middle of my sophomore year.
I always wonder why that is. By the way, there's too many famous people that have dropped out of Harvard early, and I think the dorms must be terrible. Is my theory, but I can't imagine.
Actually, the dorms were lovely.
Oh, they were. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why so many people leave.
I had no problem with the dorms.
Oh, really? Because my son and I toured that campus, and I thought these dorms really need updated.
Well, they probably do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so putting aside the fact that you don't collect coins, and we could talk a lot about the collectibles that you do love, like comic books and things, but what you do know professionally about coins is vast, and since we speak to that audience, what kinds of coins would you put into a basket with an eye towards value? Now, it doesn't have to be 7-figure value or 3-figure value, but if you just kind of picked a few areas, you say, I just feel this particular sub area of coins is undervalued today. What do you like?
Well, I think a lot of the varieties are still under collected. Okay. A lot of the die varieties under researched and under collected. But really, I don't know whether I could ever predict what has future potential. So I would recommend to somebody starting out in coins to just pick an area of specialization and learn as much about that area as you possibly can, so that you know more than most of the dealers know about just that small subset of numismatics, whatever it is, whether it's Washington quarters or bust quarters, or type 3 gold dollars, but just whatever series or any kind of typeset, but just pick a small area and learn a lot about that area.
Interesting. That's great advice.
And I think the reason that I would recommend that is because, number one, you'll get better deals. Number two, you'll probably stay interested longer. And it will eventually lead you to other areas, but just hopefully not too fast. Because people who come in to the hobby too fast and spend too much money in a hurry, very often lose interest and wish they hadn't spent the money so fast.
Right.
I'd rather they do it slowly and read and talk to people and just learn as much as they can along the way. The learning is the best part of the hobby, I think.
Fascinating. And I agree. And it also, I think you could spin that same conversation logic into my final question, which was advice that you might have for, someone who wants to make the transition from collecting to dealing. Hopefully nobody just jumps into being a dealer without having some collecting knowledge. And I think what you mentioned there is very similar to my father's story, where my father was a specialist in barber coinage.
I remember.
Only knew barbers, dimes, quarters, half dollars. He knew more than anybody at a time that nobody really cared about knowing. Wrote books.
Yeah.
And then we spun that. He and I together kind of grew from barbers to buffaloes and Indian cents and then Morgan dollars and all those other things. So is there any other advice that you might have beyond something, the specialization, which is extremely important? You're right. And you can spend too much money too fast if you don't. But what else would you tell someone who's relatively new to the coin business? And luckily, we're seeing newer people. We're seeing a younger generation than we've seen in a while, interested in coins, looking to make a living here, having fun. They're more savvy with the internet than their parents were. So what might we share with them as in terms of success? And
well, I'm thinking about that a lot, because my son, my younger son, is interested in becoming a comic book dealer.
Okay.
And he's, just started out dealing comic books. He's been dealing in comic books for about a year, and he's very, very intensely interested and talented at it. He's learning very, very quickly. And, he has a little trouble keeping organized, but I think that's a typical problem for all dealers when we get into business. And, but he's very good at getting information from a lot of different sources and very good at meeting people. He's extremely social and loves to talk to people and get to know them and learn as much as he can from them and share ideas and that sort of thing. And so I think you should take a good inventory of your own talents and interests and likes, what you like to do with your time, what you enjoy, and try to leverage that into your business model.
Okay.
It was a big game changer for me when I started going to coin shows instead of just going from shop to shop and working out of my coin shop.
Right.
And, back then, of course, there was a coin shop, every few miles everywhere.
Right.
But, I would say that you really just have to do a lot of thinking and studying and talking to people. And you'll get a lot of advice. The coin business is kind of similar today, even to what it was in the 60s when I started, which is that other coin dealers will be very welcoming. And if you talk to them, they will help you.
Right. It's true.
And just like they did with me, it's an extremely welcoming community. And so take advantage of that because the community wants you to take advantage of that.
Right. And I guess back to your original point with your son and suggesting that he's, he could be a little more organized. I think that one thing is a very poignant point with most people is you have to treat it like a business. And even when I came into business in 1990 with my father, it was still a hobby for him that he was buying and selling a little bit. But I said, Dad, you got to treat this like a business. I just graduated business school and this doesn't look like the business I was, researching. So and he said, all right, sure. Let's see what that looks like. And that really helped us grow. Otherwise you're just seat of the pants, flying from hip to hip about whatever decisions you make. And I think now more so than when you were young, it seems complicated to me with dealers that have to realize that the marketing has to be more organized, whether it's social, you have to have a website and go to coin shows, and have insurance and make sure your bank is okay with your deposits and 14 other payment things like Venmo or PayPal. And it seems like there's a lot. It seems more overwhelming to me to just start up something small than it did.
It could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never had a job, so I don't really know. I just kind of started as a hobby. I started my business as a hobby. I had always had businesses since I was 7 or 8 years old, and it kind of I kind of discovered what I had a knack for and went with it.
Yeah. Well,
so it's hard for me to relate to whether it's more or less complicated now. I guess it's more complicated, but there's also more tools, and it's more democratic now in terms of the information that's available, and it's easier to interpret. And some people are cut out for having their own businesses, and some people are better off working for somebody else because they don't want to take the risk. Starting a business is risky.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of details, like I said, so sometimes it's easier not to have to worry about all those details. Mm-hmm. But no, great answer. And I think, we could talk all day about a lot of subjects, but in this short time, I think you really helped me cover some great information in a short time. And I thank you for that time. And I'm sure.
Well, you asked me some terrific questions, and I enjoyed answering.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. And we look forward to following up on this interview in the future. I'm sure people will enjoy hearing it, and we'll talk to you soon.
I would love that. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.